In March 2026, a coordinated wave of missiles and drones struck coastal desalination plants in Iran and Bahrain. These strikes exposed a terrifying vulnerability. If those facilities stay offline, major cities in the region have only a few days of drinking water left in reserve. The Middle East relies on these facilities, producing roughly 40% of the world's desalinated water. But that production is highly centralized. Most water comes from just 50 megaplants, creating a severe bottleneck that is virtually impossible to defend. These reverse osmosis plants are sprawling, highly exposed industrial targets. When water is manufactured in massive, fragile factories, a nation's lifeline becomes its greatest military weakness. How did the Middle East end up completely tethered to these vulnerable, multi-billion-dollar machines? To answer that, we look inland, specifically at Iran, a country experiencing total water bankruptcy. This is a state where human demand has permanently outstripped the renewable supply of water. The vulnerability of those coastal plants makes sense when you see how a nation systematically destroys its natural water resilience from the inside out. These missile strikes represent the final, desperate stage of an ecological disaster decades in the making. For millennia, Iranians survived in an arid climate using a highly sustainable system of underground aqueducts called qanats. But following the 1979 revolution and the grueling Iran-Iraq War, the government became obsessed with achieving total agricultural self-sufficiency. The state abandoned the ancient qanats. Instead, they subsidized the drilling of deep, diesel-powered wells and launched a reckless, nationwide dam-building campaign. This effort was driven by the water mafia, an alliance of politicians, powerful contractors, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC. They prioritized lucrative mega-projects over basic environmental science. The Gatvan Dam is a symbol of this hubris. Despite explicit warnings from geologists, the government built it directly over a massive salt bed, turning a freshwater river into a saline hazard. In its blind pursuit of engineered independence, the state successfully engineered the country's hydrological collapse. The macro-level outcome of these policies is the rapid and near-total depletion of Iran's natural underground aquifers. Above ground, the devastation is just as severe. Lake Urmia was once one of the largest saltwater lakes on Earth. Today, agricultural overextraction has drained it into a barren wasteland. This exposed lakebed has triggered a secondary health crisis. It now generates toxic salt storms that blanket nearby communities, driving spikes in respiratory illnesses and cancer. Farms have collapsed, forcing millions to migrate into crowded city slums. Between 2018 and 2021, the desperation boiled over into deadly water protests in provinces like Khuzestan. Decades of mismanagement turned Iran's natural geography into a primary driver of violent social instability. But this water bankruptcy doesn't stop at the Iranian border. It is actively destabilizing the broader region. Both Iran and Turkey have engaged in aggressive upstream damming, choking off the natural flow of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Downstream in Syria and Iraq, the effects are devastating. The severely reduced river flows are destroying local agriculture and forcing millions of people into displacement. By controlling the headwaters, upstream nations are able to treat transboundary rivers as strategic leverage, effectively holding their downstream neighbors hostage. Water has become an active geopolitical weapon, used to project regional power across the Middle East. Which brings us back to those 2026 missile strikes. With rivers dying and aquifers drained, desperate regimes are forced to turn to the sea. They fall into the desalination trap. They are astronomically expensive to build, pump toxic brine into the Gulf, and create massive, undefensible military targets. No amount of bombing, sanctions, or engineering can resolve a systemic water bankruptcy. The only viable path forward requires a return to sustainable, democratized water management. That means prioritizing nature-based aquifer recharges and cooperative cross-border governance. The Middle East is offering the rest of us a grim preview. We either adapt to sustainable water practices now, or we face an impending era of endless resource wars and mass climate exodus.